Please welcome Lieutenant Governor RichardRavitch.
I'm always embarrassed when I hear somebody recite all the different things I did, because what it proves generally is that I can't hold one job for too long. I welcome the opportunity always, of course, to talk with Ed Koch, who I've known for, I guess, close to 50 years. And I don't know a finer person that ever went into politics in New York. But I do have something important I'd like to share with you. And that is that politics in Albany is in trouble, but it's in trouble because the state's in trouble. Because we're broke. Because we have deficits, fundamental structural deficits that are growing every year. This is not just a function of what happened in 2008 to the economy. Every year, the rate of growth of expenditures is exceeding the rate of growth of revenue. We have a bigger budget gap this year than we had last year. And depending how this one is resolved, we might have an even bigger one the following year. And when the federal stimulus money comes to an end on July 1st, the state is going to fall off a cliff fiscally. That's part of the projected deficit for the next state fiscal year. In these intervening last 20-odd years, we have doubled our expenditures on Medicaid. The state spends $52 billion a year on Medicaid. 1975, the budget of the state of New York wasn't equal to $52 billion. I could go on at length with fact after fact, all of which would confirm what I shared with you about the rising cost and, more importantly, the growing gap. The problem with politics is that our entire political system for years was a function in large part of how people running for office could persuade the public that they could do things for them. And in a democracy, particularly when the political party is no longer a significant factor and no longer a mechanism that can move young people up a path of success in politics, you got to go out and raise money. And the money comes from people who have an interest in the outcome. I don't think that's wrong or salacious. It's just a fact of life. Whether they're a union or whether they're a bank, Wall Street firm, same thing. They're in it for the same reasons. And I don't fault them. And when you run for office, if you have a contested election, you have to persuade people that you're going to make life better for them. Either you're going to prevent something bad from happening, like having an unattractive thing built by the city in your neighborhood, or you want something good to happen. You want a new clinic, you want some low-income housing, or you don't want low-income housing. And that's how you get elected. And all of a sudden, the reality is there isn't any money. We have to cut billions of dollars out of state expenditures. That is not a formula for political success. I haven't heard many people get elected on a platform that they're going to cut public services, health care and education in a neighborhood. And state legislators are essentially elected in neighborhoods. So I mention what may be self-evident because I have less rectitude than others about the way the political system responds to this. We've never faced anything quite like it. The only precedent, I'm not saying this because it is here, but the only time I'm aware of a major election being won by somebody who promised pain and not plentitude was when Ed was elected mayor in '77. But a mayoral campaign, not to take away from his success in any way, is well covered by the media. Every individual Senate and Assembly race is not. And in fact, very little of substance that happens at Albany gets reported with any degree of accuracy. There were more column inches last year on Hiram Montserrat and Peter Spada than there were on the entire budget problem that the state of New York faced. And therefore, why should the public think that the budget was more important than the fact that we had a couple of bums in the legislature? That's the message the public got as to what was important, and that spread. You know, I have in the last year clipped many editorials from all our distinguished papers that describe the legislature in the most egregious, pejorative way that they can be described. And it's very unfair, in my judgment. But it is also true that the entire political system hasn't faced up to the reality of a fundamentally changed economic paradigm. And I have to say to you in all candor that the major reason why is that the public hasn't changed their behavior. The banks are still up in Albany peddling the same borrowing schemes, offering ways of producing cash that do nothing but kick the can forward. They haven't changed what they do one iota. And the unions have been up there pushing for the same increased pension benefits, improved terms and conditions, more appropriations for health care and education, as if the world hadn't changed. And if nobody's behavior has changed, if none of the major players have changed their behavior, I would respectfully suggest that the people who are in politics don't deserve the amount of rectitude that they've been subjected to. That the first problem is us. I still think of myself. Lieutenant governors have absolutely no vote and no power to do anything, as you know. So I still view myself as a citizen, which I will be formally again in a couple of weeks. But it's up to us, it's up to you in this room to recognize how serious this problem is. Change your behavior. Encourage brighter people to run for office. You know, I don't know how many people would want their kids to spend 6 months a year in Albany for $75,000 if they had a good education, if they cared, if they had alternative opportunities. Think about that. How do we get younger people? We don't get them by blackening, by making politics a dirty word. Politics is the process by which democracies make decisions. And the public's lost sight of that because the media has not been forthright in explaining this fairly and candidly. So you got to recognize the truth about what kind of fiscal peril we're in, and you have to find people who are willing to run. You could change all the processes you want, but until there are people who want to run for office, who are going to march to the kind of drummer that we would all like to see people in politics march to, then, and only then, will we begin to solve these problems. Thank you.